The moving truck's engine sputtered to a stop, and I was already sweating through my shirt. Willow Creek, a sleepy suburb in upstate New York, wasn't ready for me, or maybe I wasn't ready for it. But when my neighbor stepped out of his house with a sledgehammer in one hand and a disarming smile, my life tilted on its axis. I'm Ethan Caldwell, 28, freshly dumped and fleeing the chaos of Manhattan for a quieter life. My new house, a modest two-story with peeling paint, was a fixer-upper I'd bought sight unseen. It was a gamble, but I needed a fresh start after my ex, Mark, shredded my heart and left me questioning everything. The moving company had just dumped my boxes in the driveway when I noticed him. My neighbor, shirtless in the late August heat, swinging that sledgehammer against a rotting fence between our yards. "Hey, new guy," he called, his voice carrying a lazy, confident drawl. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with messy blonde hair and a jawline that could cut glass. His name, I'd later learn, was Lucas Reed, 30, a carpenter who'd lived in Willow Creek his whole life. "You planning to live in that heap or just stare at it?" I laughed, caught off guard. "Ethan," I said, wiping my brow, "and I'm figuring it out." "Lucas." He grinned, tossing the sledgehammer down like it weighed nothing. "Welcome to the neighborhood. You need a hand with those boxes." I hesitated. I wasn't used to strangers offering help or looking at me like they could see right through my defenses. But I nodded, and Lucas jogged over, his work boots kicking up dust. He hoisted 2 boxes like they were pillows, and I couldn't help but notice the way his muscles flexed under the sun. I told myself to focus. I wasn't here to ogle neighbors. I was here to rebuild. We spent the afternoon moving boxes, Lucas filling the silence with stories about Willow Creek. How the diner on Main Street made the best blueberry pie. How the town's annual fair was a chaotic mix of pride and prejudice. His ease, his openness disarmed me. By the time the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of peach and lavender, we were sitting on my porch, sharing a couple of beers he'd grabbed from his fridge. "You don't seem like the suburban type," Lucas said, leaning back, his blue eyes glinting with curiosity. "What's your story, Ethan?" I froze, the beer bottle halfway to my lips. My story? A failed relationship, a career in graphic design that felt increasingly hollow, a heart that didn't know how to trust anymore. Just needed a change, I mumbled, dodging his gaze. He didn't push, but his silence felt like an invitation. Something about him, maybe the way he listened, maybe the way he didn't flinch when our knees brushed, made me want to spill everything. But I didn't. Not yet. That night, as I lay in my half-unpacked bedroom, I couldn't shake the image of Lucas's smile. It was ridiculous. I'd known him for 6 hours. Yet something had shifted, like a fault line deep inside me, cracking open possibilities I wasn't ready to face. The next morning, I woke to a loud thud outside. Peering through the window, I saw Lucas in my backyard, tearing down the rest of that crumbling fence. Shirtless again, his skin glistening with sweat, he moved with a purpose that was almost hypnotic. I stepped outside, arms crossed, trying to play it cool. "What are you doing?" I asked, though I wasn't complaining. "Fixing your yard," he said, not looking up. "This fence is a hazard. Besides, I figured you'd want a better view." He gestured toward his own backyard, where a small garden bloomed with wildflowers. I raised an eyebrow. "You always this neighborly?" He laughed, a sound that warmed me from the inside out. Only when I liked the neighbor. My stomach flipped. Was he flirting? I wasn't sure, but the air between us felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. I spent the day helping him, hauling wood and dodging splinters, our banter growing easier with every hour. By dusk, the fence was gone, and our yards felt like one shared space, open and unguarded. That night, Lucas invited me over for dinner. His house was a mirror of mine, but lived in, warm, with mismatched furniture and photos of him with friends and family on every wall. Over homemade lasagna, he told me about growing up in Willow Creek, about losing his mom to cancer at 15, about staying because this town, flawed as it was home. "You ever think about leaving?" I asked, swirling my wine. Sometimes, he admitted, his eyes locking onto mine. But then I meet someone who makes staying feel right. My breath caught. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I wanted to lean across the table, to close the distance between us, but fear held me back. Mark's betrayal was still a fresh wound, and I didn't know if I could trust my heart again, or if Lucas was even interested. As I walked home, the stars above Willow Creek brighter than I'd ever seen in the city, I realized I was already falling. For Lucas, for this place, for the possibility of something real. But I also knew this town wasn't as idyllic as it seemed, and neither was Lucas's story. There was something he wasn't telling me, something that lingered in the way his smile faltered when he thought I wasn't looking. The next week in Willow Creek was a blur of unpacking and Lucas. He was everywhere, fixing my leaky faucet, dropping off coffee from the diner, showing up with tools to help me sand down my porch. Each moment with him felt like a brushstroke on a canvas I hadn't known I was painting. But beneath the warmth of his presence, I sensed a shadow, something unspoken that made my heart race with both longing and unease. One afternoon, as we painted my living room a soft sage green, Lucas's hand brushed mine while reaching for the roller. The touch lingered, electric, and I caught his gaze, intense, searching, like he was waiting for me to make the next move. I didn't. I couldn't. Not when Mark's voice still echoed in my head, calling me naive for believing in love. "You're quiet today," Lucas said, wiping paint from his cheek. "Everything okay?" I forced a smile, just adjusting. This place is different from the city. He nodded, but his eyes didn't leave mine. Different good or different bad? Both, I admitted. It's quiet, but it feels like everyone's watching. He chuckled, but there was an edge to it. Yeah, Willow Creek's got eyes. Small towns, you know. They love their gossip. I wanted to ask what he meant, but a knock at the door interrupted us. It was Mrs. Hargrove, the nosy retiree from across the street, holding a casserole dish and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just welcoming the new neighbor," she said, her gaze flicking to Lucas. "You're keeping interesting company, Ethan." Lucas's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, just grabbed his paint roller and turned away. Mrs. Hargrove lingered, her words dripping with subtext about keeping things proper in Willow Creek. When she left, the air felt heavier. "What was that about?" I asked, my voice low. Lucas shrugged, but his shoulders were tense. "She's just old school. Doesn't like change." I didn't buy it. There was history there, something he wasn't sharing. That night, I couldn't sleep, my mind replaying Lucas's guarded expression, the way Mrs. Hargrove's words seemed to cut. I started noticing other things, the way some neighbors whispered when Lucas passed by, the way the diner went quiet when we walked in together. Willow Creek wasn't just quaint. It was a pressure cooker of secrets. The next day, Lucas suggested we hike to Willow Point, a bluff overlooking the town. The trail was steep, lined with pines and wildflowers, and Lucas moved with the ease of someone who'd walked it 100 times. At the top, we sat on a flat rock, the town sprawling below us like a postcard. The wind carried the scent of cedar, and for a moment, I forgot the whispers, the doubts. "You ever feel like you don't belong?" I asked, staring at the horizon. Lucas was quiet for a long time. Then, softly all the time, I turned to him, surprised. "You, Mr. Hometown Hero?" He laughed, but it was hollow. "This place, it loves you until it doesn't." I learned that the hard way. I wanted to press, but he stood, offering me his hand. "Come on, I want to show you something." He led me to a small clearing nearby, where a wooden bench overlooked the valley. Carved into the backrest were initials, LR plus TM. My stomach twisted. "Who's TM?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Lucas's face darkened. "Someone I used to know." The air shifted, heavy with unspoken pain. I wanted to reach for him, to pull him close, but the weight of those initials held me back. We hiked back in silence, the easy camaraderie of the morning gone. That night, alone in my house, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lucas was carrying a wound as raw as mine. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. Meet me at the fair tonight. Let's have some fun. Ed, my heart raced. The Willow Creek Fair was the town's big event, a chaotic blend of carnival rides, pie contests, and local pride. I wasn't sure if it was a date or just Lucas being Lucas, but I went anyway, my nerves buzzing. The fair was alive with lights and laughter, the air thick with the smell of cotton candy and fried dough. Lucas found me by the Ferris wheel, his smile brighter than the neon lights. "Ready to see what this town's really about?" he asked, grabbing my hand. My breath caught, but I let him pull me through the crowd. We rode the Ferris wheel, our shoulders brushing as the town sparkled below. At the top, Lucas turned to me, his face soft in the glow. "I'm glad you moved here, Ethan," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to say something back, to tell him he was waking up parts of me I'd thought were dead. But before I could, a voice cut through the noise, a man, drunk and loud, shouting Lucas's name from below. "Reed, still chasing trouble, huh?" Lucas's face paled. The ride ended, and he pulled away, his warmth replaced by a wall I couldn't breach. The rest of the night, he was distant, his smiles forced. When I asked what was wrong, he just shook his head. "It's nothing, Ethan. Just old ghosts." But it wasn't nothing. I saw it in the way his hands shook, the way he avoided my eyes. As I walked home alone, the fair's lights fading behind me, I knew Lucas was hiding something big, something that could break us before we even began. The next morning, I woke with a resolve to uncover Lucas's secret. Willow Creek's charm was wearing thin, its whispers growing louder. I couldn't ignore the way people looked at Lucas, like he was a puzzle they'd solved and didn't like. But I was falling for him, hard, and I needed to know why this town seemed to hold him at arm's length. I started at the diner, where the coffee was strong and the gossip stronger. The waitress, a middle-aged woman named Clara, knew everyone's business. I ordered a coffee and casually mentioned Lucas. Her smile faltered. "He's a good boy," she said too quickly. "Just been through a lot. You know about Tyler." "Tyler? TM." My heart sank. "No," I said, leaning in. "Who's Tyler?" Clara hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Tyler Monroe, Lucas's high school sweetheart. They were inseparable until, well, it's not my place to say. Ask Lucas." I left the diner, my mind racing. Tyler was real, not just initials on a bench. I wanted to confront Lucas, but I didn't know how. Instead, I went to the library, a squat brick building with outdated computers and a local history section. There, in old newspaper archives, I found it, a 2012 article about a car accident. Tyler Monroe, 18, killed in a crash on Route 17. The driver? Lucas Reed. My stomach churned. The article was sparse, no mention of fault, but the comments online were vicious. Drunk driver. Ruined a good family. Should have left town. I felt sick, not just for Lucas, but for the weight he'd been carrying. I needed to hear his side, but fear gnawed at me. What if he wasn't the man I thought he was? That evening, Lucas showed up at my door with a toolbox. "Your back door's sticking," he said like nothing had changed. But everything had. I let him in, my heart pounding as he worked. Finally, I couldn't hold back. "Lucas," I said, my voice shaking. "Who was Tyler Monroe?" He froze, the screwdriver slipping from his hand. For a moment, I thought he'd bolt. Then he sank onto a chair, his face crumpling. "You've been digging," he said, not accusing, just tired. "I had to," I said. "People talk, Lucas, and you don't." He looked at me, his eyes raw. Tyler was everything. We were kids, in love, stupid enough to think this town would accept us. We kept it quiet, but everyone knew. That night, his voice broke. We were driving home from a party. I wasn't drunk, Ethan, I swear. A deer ran out, I swerved, and he was gone. I sat beside him, my hand hovering, unsure if I should touch him. "The town blames you," I said softly. "They always will," he said, his voice hollow. Tyler's family was Willow Creek royalty. I was just a carpenter's kid. After the accident, they made me the villain. I stayed because I couldn't run from it. But it's why I don't let people in. My heart ached for him. I wanted to hold him, to tell him he wasn't that kid anymore. But before I could, he stood. I should go. Lucas, wait. No, he said, his voice sharp. You don't get it, Ethan. You're new here. You can still leave before this place chews you up too. He left, and I stood in my half-painted kitchen, feeling like I'd lost something I'd only just found. The next few days were agony. Lucas avoided me, his house dark, his truck gone. I threw myself into fixing up my place, but every nail I hammered felt like I was trying to fix my own heart. Then, at the end of the week, I saw him at the hardware store. He looked exhausted, his eyes shadowed. I cornered him by the paint cans. You can't just shut me out, I said. I'm not them, Lucas. I'm not the town. He looked at me, his defenses crumbling. You don't know what you're signing up for, Ethan. This place, it doesn't forgive. Maybe I don't care, I said, stepping closer. Maybe I just want you. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he reached for my hand, his fingers trembling. I don't deserve this, he whispered. Yes, you do, I said, and I meant it. That night, we sat on my porch, the air cool with the first hint of fall. Lucas told me everything. How he'd loved Tyler fiercely, how the accident had shattered him, how he'd spent years rebuilding himself only to be met with judgment. I told him about Mark, about the betrayal that had driven me here. For the first time, I felt like we were seeing each other, raw and unfiltered. As the stars came out, Lucas leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek. I'm scared, he admitted, but I don't want to lose this. Then don't, I said, and when he kissed me, soft and tentative, it felt like the world righted itself. But even as I melted into him, I knew Willow Creek wasn't done with us. The whispers, the stares, they were waiting, and they'd test us in ways I couldn't yet imagine. The kiss changed everything. Lucas and I were no longer just neighbors sharing beers and banter. We were something undefined, something fragile, and something worth fighting for. But Willow Creek had other plans. The town's undercurrent of judgment, once a murmur, grew into a roar, and I realized love in a place like this came with a cost. We tried to keep it quiet at first. Stolen glances in the hardware store, late-night talks on my porch, his hand brushing mine as we worked on my house. But small towns have a way of noticing. By the second week, the whispers were unmistakable. At the diner, Clara's smile was tighter. Mrs. Hargrove stopped bringing casseroles. And at the gas station, a man I didn't know muttered "faggot" under his breath as I passed. Lucas took it harder than I did. They'll come for you too, he warned one night, his voice low as we sat in his living room. This town doesn't let people like us just be. Then we'll fight, I said, my hand finding his. I'm not running, Lucas. Not this time. He looked at me, his eyes a storm of hope and fear. You're braver than I am. But I wasn't. I was terrified, not of the town, but of losing him. Every touch, every laugh, felt like a defiance of Willow Creek's rules, and I loved it as much as I feared it. We were building something real, but the cracks were already showing. The breaking point came at the town's Harvest Festival. Lucas and I went together, not as a couple, but not hiding either. The fairgrounds were packed, kids running wild, couples holding hands under strings of fairy lights. We were sharing a caramel apple when Tyler's older brother, Nate Monroe, approached. He was broad, intimidating, with eyes that burned with old anger. Reed, Nate spat, his voice carrying over the crowd. You got some nerve showing your face here. Lucas stiffened, his hand tightening around mine. Nate, don't do this. Do what? Nate stepped closer, his voice rising. Remind everyone what you did? You think you can just move on, parade around with him? He jerked his head toward me. I felt the crowd's eyes on us, the air thick with tension. Let's go, I whispered to Lucas, but he didn't move. I live here, Nate, Lucas said, his voice steady but strained. I'm not hiding anymore. Nate laughed, a cruel sound. You're a disgrace. Tyler deserved better. The words hit Lucas like a punch. He let go of my hand, his face pale, and walked away, leaving me standing there as Nate's glare turned to me. You knew, he said. You'll learn. I found Lucas by the riverbank, away from the festival's noise. He was sitting on the grass, head in his hands. I sat beside him, the silence heavy. "I'm sorry," I said finally. "I didn't know it was this bad." "It's worse," he said, his voice raw. "Nate's been waiting for a reason to come after me. Now he has one." "Me?" I said, the realization sinking in. Lucas nodded. "I told you, Ethan. This place doesn't forgive." I wanted to argue, to tell him we could face it together, but the weight of his pain stopped me. Instead, I took his hand, lacing our fingers together. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "Not unless you tell me to." He looked at me, his eyes glistening. "You're too good for this town." "No," I said, leaning closer. "I'm just right for you." We kissed again, harder this time, like we were claiming something the world wanted to take. But the victory was short-lived. The next day, my mailbox was spray-painted with slurs. Lucas's truck tires were slashed. The town was sending a message, and it wasn't subtle. We didn't back down. Lucas started staying over, his presence a shield against the hate. We cooked together, laughed together, made love in the quiet of my bedroom, each moment a rebellion. But the pressure was relentless. At work, my freelance clients started getting anonymous emails warning them about the new guy in Willow Creek. Lucas's carpentry jobs dried up, clients citing reputation concerns. One night, as we lay in bed, Lucas's voice broke the silence. "Maybe we should leave," he said. "Start over somewhere else." I turned to him, my heart sinking. "Is that what you want?" "I don't know," he admitted. I don't want to lose you." "You won't," I said, but the words felt fragile. Willow Creek was testing us, and I wasn't sure we were strong enough to win. By the end of the month, the tension was unbearable. We were walking home from the diner when a group of men, Nate among them, blocked our path. "You don't belong here," Nate said, his voice low and dangerous. "Either of you." Lucas stepped in front of me, his fists clenched. "Back off, Nate." But Nate didn't. He shoved Lucas hard, and I saw red. I lunged forward, ready to fight, but Lucas pulled me back. "Don't," he whispered. "It's what they want." We walked away, hearts pounding, but the encounter left us shaken. That night, as we sat on my porch, Lucas's hand in mine, I knew we were at crossroads. We could fight, or we could run. But either way, we have to choose soon, before Willow Creek chose for us. The air in Willow Creek grew colder, and so did the town's heart. Lucas and I were marked now, our every move watched, judged, condemned. But in the quiet moments, his head on my chest, our fingers intertwined, I found a strength I didn't know I had. Love, I realized, wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice, one we'd have to make every day in a place that wanted to tear us apart. The harassment didn't stop. Graffiti on my house, anonymous notes slipped under Lucas's door, whispers that followed us like shadows. Nate Monroe was the ringleader, his grief twisted into a weapon. But others joined him, emboldened by the town's unspoken approval. I wanted to fight back, to scream that we deserved to exist, but Lucas was fraying. I saw it in his eyes, the way they dulled with every new attack. One night, as we sat in my kitchen, a brick crashed through the window. Glass shattered across the floor, and a note tied to the brick read, "Leave or else." Lucas's face went white, his hands shaking as he picked up the note. "This is my fault," he whispered. "I brought this on you." "No," I said, grabbing his shoulders. "This is their fault. Not yours. Not ours." But he pulled away, his eyes distant. "I can't keep doing this to you, Ethan. You deserve better." I felt like I'd been punched. "Don't you dare," I said, my voice breaking. "Don't you dare push me away because of them." He didn't answer, just walked out into the night. I didn't sleep, my mind racing with fear that I'd lose him. Not to the town, but to his own guilt. The next morning, I found him in his workshop, sanding a piece of wood with furious focus. "We need to talk," I said. He didn't look up. "There's nothing to say. You should go, Ethan, before this gets worse." "I'm not leaving," I said, stepping closer. "And neither are you. We're stronger than this." He stopped, his hand still. "You don't know what it's like," he said, his voice raw, "to lose someone and have everyone blame you. to try to live again and have it thrown in your face. Then show them, I said. Show that you're not that kid anymore. Show them we're not afraid. He looked at me, and for the first time in days, I saw a spark of hope. How? He asked. The answer came at the town hall meeting the next week. Willow Creek was voting on a new community center, and the meeting was packed. Lucas and I went, not to speak, but to show we weren't hiding. Nate was there, his voice loud as he rallied against outsiders changing our town. The room buzzed with agreement, and I felt Lucas tense beside me. I stood, my heart pounding. I'm Ethan Caldwell, I said, my voice steady despite the stares. I moved here for a fresh start, and I found something better, someone better. Lucas Reed is a good man, and he doesn't deserve your hate. Neither do I. We're not your enemies. We're your neighbors. The room went silent. Then Clara, the diner waitress, stood. He's right, she said. Lucas has been through enough. Let him live. A few others nodded, their faces softening. Nate's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Lucas squeezed my hand, his eyes shining with something like pride. It wasn't a victory, not fully, but it was a crack in the wall. The next day, Lucas and I started rebuilding. Not just my house, but us. We painted over the graffiti, fixed the window, held hands in public. Some turned away, but others, Clara, a few kids from the fair, even Mrs. Hargrove, started to smile. Willow Creek wasn't perfect, but it was changing slowly because we refused to hide. Months later, on a crisp spring evening, Lucas and I sat on the bench at Willow Point, the one with his and Tyler's initials. He'd carve a new set beside them. EC plus LR, this doesn't erase him, Lucas said, tracing Tyler's initials. But it makes room for us. I leaned into him, the valley stretching below us. We made it, I said. No, he said, kissing my forehead. We're making it. Every day. Willow Creek would never be easy, but it was ours. We'd chosen each other, chosen love, chosen a fight. And in that choice, we found something stronger than hate, a life worth living together.